welcome to episode 730 of Longbox Heroes, the Lamborghini of comic book podcasts. I'm Todd, along with Joe. How we doing tonight, Joe?
Such a nice, soft-spoken young lad you are, I tell you.
I am. My voice never gets above a low murmur,
Joe. Like the one in your heart.
Yes. Wait a minute. If I only had one murmur in my heart, that would be okay. I have multiple murmurs.
The last couple times that I've gone to the doctor, and I have to double check because I think I'm scheduled for my yearly here in December, they mentioned to me, they're like, yeah, I'm hearing a murmur there on your heart. It's probably nothing.
Yeah. He's my favorite Flash villain, you know?
That's right. I remember that. I wish some of those Flash villains did take off and pick up, but you can't beat the classics.
No, Murmur with Jeff Johns one. He was the one who ended up murdering a bunch of people, and he got convicted because the person recognized his voice. So he ended up cutting out his tongue and sewed up his mouth.
Right.
And he hated loud people. That was really good. It was on the Flash TV show. The character was nothing like that, though.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but I dug Murmur and the look. He looked like an even creepier Scarecrow.
Yeah, he's someone that unfortunately, I assume, I haven't been reading the Flash in forever. I assume post the Jeff Johns run pretty much got abandoned.
Yeah, kind of like, who was the guy who had the deck? Was it like the deck of cards on his flesh and they would fly off? That was Wild Card or something like that.
Something like that. I know.
Yeah, he was one who never, like, Jeff Johns was building up these like he had like 4 or 5 guys and he left the run, and I felt like there was future stories with those.
It was them too. It was Girder.
Yes.
Right.
Tar Pit. And then I know they moved Magenta over from the classic Rogues to the new Rogues. Yeah, Magenta was from Teen Titans. That was Frankie, his ex-girlfriend,
right,
who ended up having multiple personality disorder. So she was kind of always Wally's, but different book that he was in.
Right. Yeah, bring those back. Bring all those Rogues back. I love
best
the classics.
Rogues gallery in comics, man.
Yeah. Bar none. Well, what do we have to talk about on the show? Enough of this nonsense about the Flash. What's he ever done for anyone?
That's right. We have a slender read of news this week. A new imprint and trademarks lost, Joe. Conventions. The latest edition of Becky's My Walk Down Lois Lane, which is part 2. What we read last week, which was both Saga 69 and Lobo Cancellation Special number 1. What we're looking forward to this week, Todd and Joe have issues where we reread Gail Simone's Secret Six in its entirety. This week we'll be doing issue 22 of the Secret Six run. And finally, in movie and TV talk, spoiler-filled talk of the latest episodes of Agatha and The Penguin.
There you go. Sounds like a short show to me, ladies and gentlemen.
It should be. I'm making a concerted effort to watch the clock and make it a show.
No, don't watch it could be a short show without watching the clock, I promise.
Well, if I don't watch the clock, you're going to dock me. So we have to do that.
So the first news story that comes up, and we're not going to get into the all legal mumbo jumbo of all this, but that is a story that we had come up and talked about a couple weeks ago, if not months ago, here on the podcast, which is the trademark to the words superhero, whether it be together as one word or 2 words, capital S, capital H.
Right.
It was a joint trademark that both Marvel and DC held for many, many years. And we had gone through some of the defeats that they handed out to people who tried to push the trademark back to them. Well, just this past week, the United States Supreme Court has decided that they, Marvel and DC, pronouns pal, no longer have that joint trademark.
I hate when the government gangs up on the little guys, Joe.
Yes. So what does this mean for Marvel and DC?
What?
Nothing really.
Right.
What does this mean for everyone else? Nothing really.
Mm-hmm.
It means they won't get sued.
Right. They can just put superheroes on everything and it's okay now.
Right. And, over the last however many years of everyone else doing superhero comics, getting around calling their superheroes in new and creative ways, like meta human or just metas, or like in The Boys where they just call them Supes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They don't have to do any of that stuff no more.
Right.
But the problem is the people like The Boys, which is kind of already found their niche, or other people that have already established, well, we've known for 20, 30, 40 years that we can't use superheroes, so we're just using something else. I don't see all of those people like going, oh, well, now superheroes on the books, we're just going to retroactively change everything, or now going forward, we're no longer going to use the thing that we established. We're going to use this other thing.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a lot of people, if they have a brand that they've built up in their comic line, keeping, like, still using it, but peppering in superhero. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, they're the superheroes. Somebody might call them like the royalty, whatever. They have a word for it and just use it. I mean, the only one that I see them never, like, because there's only one season left, like you said, is The Boys. Like, they have marketed Supes so hard on The Boys that, like, who cares? We're in the home stretch and Supes works for us. Though I would like to see somebody be named the Salads to go along with it, Joe.
Oh, boy. I think it's a different spelling on Supes.
It is a different spelling. You can do a different spelling on salads. But, and I'm giving my writers a raise, by the way, Joe.
I wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't. But so the other thing that popped up, and this was kind of like, we talked about stealthy or retroactively or whatever it was. So the December solicitations have come out, right? Mm-hmm. The Diamond catalog is out and the whole thing like that. And I noticed in the Image solicitations that there was a new book in there from Garth Ennis and Mike Perkins, right?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, it's a horror book. I haven't tried any Garth Ennis's new stuff in a long time. And, it's a one-shot. It's oversized. Whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I'm good. So then, like a week later, after the solicitations have come out online and everything else like that, it turns out that this book is now part of a new horror imprint at Image called Ninth Circle, that, among others, Garth Ennis, Marguerite Bennett, and Ram V are going to be doing stuff for.
Right.
So I wonder... Now, and again, we've talked... I feel as though every other week we have a story here of some new horror imprint that has been started, right?
Right.
And... it's so crazy to think, like, obviously Ghost Machine and Skybound and Top Cow and all these other things that exist at Image. But in my mind, they're still all just Image. Like, I don't look at them as separate imprints. Like, I don't have a separate list of, like, oh, here's my Ghost Machine books and here's my Image books and here's this. Everything just goes under Image, right?
Right.
So I wonder if this was something that Garth Ennis had kicking around, and then in between it hitting the solicitations... and now he was able to get other people on there to be like, oh, yeah, we have this imprint idea. Horror is hot. Let's get some stuff going, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the launch book, and a lot of these other creators don't have books or anything that are announced for it. But it just seems weird that the book initially got launched as, the debut book for this new Image horror imprint, and then it wasn't announced as part of the imprint until a week after the book itself was announced. And does this feel like a cheap cash grab on the recent resurgence in horror comics? Maybe. Now,
because you're the horror guy on the show, do you think it has to do with like a legitimate? To me, it seems like a resurgence of horror in movies. Like, because even I've noticed, like, the Terrifier, and there's like a few others. Like, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but you would probably know the names, at least being, 1 foot still in the horror genre.
Yeah, I got like a pinky toe these days, but
whatever.
Yeah,
but you know more than me, But it just seems like I'm seeing horror come back to the top of the thing, because I'm trying to remember there was like, like the new, whether even if it's just body horror or like there's The Substance is hot right now, that movie, and like last year there was like The Barbarian or something like that. There's just a lot of that, and I see that, something cheap in movies that could make a lot of money. And it's like, oh, if that's making a lot of money in movies, we should do it in comics. Do you think that's like there's a correlation?
Kind of, sort of. It's really been going on longer than like the last like year or two. It's been going on maybe the last like 6 or 7 years, whether it be Blumhouse doing stuff or whether it be like A24 doing stuff in horror.
Right.
But it's not like there's all these like critical smash sensations like James Wan, who did a bunch of the Fast and the Furious movies, Aquaman, and did the first Aquaman movie, right? He did this one a couple years ago that was, or I say a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, or whatever it was, called Malignant, right?
Heard of it.
Okay, that I loved. So it's more so of these horror movies breaking through into general pop culture. Like the fact that you heard of Malignant and the fact that you heard of The Substance isn't mean that like horror is back. Horror never left, right? But the good stuff is starting to kind of filter in through regular pop culture. Like, I'm sure that you're aware of the Conjuring movies or the Annabelle movies or things like that,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Those are the big, not so much big budget, but those are the big, flashy, name brand ones. They spit one out every year. It costs them $15 to $20 million to make. They make $50 million in their opening weekend, and then it's an 80% drop off the second weekend. But it doesn't matter because they tripled their money in their opening weekend, right?
Right.
And then you have all the people that try to copycat off of all of those things, right? So those is what's in the public consciousness. But then a movie like, you know, we mentioned The Substance, we mentioned Malignant, which are two different movies. I don't want to paint them as the same thing. But then like movies like Longlegs that came out earlier this year, the Terrifier movies. The Terrifier movies are like the new Annabelle Conjuring movies. But where I'm getting with all of this is the fact that there's such an awareness of horror, the fact that the good stuff is starting to permeate through movie-wise and TV show-wise, that I'm shocked that it's taking comics this long to really push horror imprints. Like, why were these books... Now, I'll say, why were these books not coming out 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago? It's because probably nobody had the ideas for them 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Right. Now they see horrors and not all, I get it, but horrors making money again. It's like, oh, maybe I could sell one of these as an idea to a movie studio, you know?
Right. And I really think it more so comes from, we talked about it on the show and we reviewed it on the show. And, you know, honestly, we talk about it, something that did not land essentially with us, but it was Oni Press doing the EC Comics retread with the Epitaphs from the Abyss and whatever the sci-fi one is. Right. And that Epitaphs from the Abyss was a huge success for an indie book. And I think it was that's causing all of these imprints to come forward. That's why IDW has a horror imprint. That's why Image has a horror imprint. That's why this one has a horror imprint. That's why, you know, and obviously I'm sure that it was cooking for a while when Marvel did Blood Hunt. But one would assume that it was the word and the rumor, because, you know, we talked about this before when a year ago it got announced that Jason Aaron was going to be doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book. And then it was like 6 months before that, the Rob was tweeting about it, right? Right. So the industry knows what the industry is doing minimally 6 months before we know. And I remember Epitaphs from the Abyss rolled out like 3 or 4 months before the first book was even published to like build the word of mouth, to build the brand and everything else like that. So I would assume that the industry knew that this was coming beforehand. Marvel moves their things around, and DC's always had success with this as well. Marvel, if you remember, had success back like 10, 15 years ago with all the Marvel zombie stuff. Yes. Right. But I think in comics, it just goes in waves.
Yeah, you know? Waves, yeah. Because the height of it for DC was the mature readers into the Vertigo stuff. Yeah. That was like, you know, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing before it became, you know, Vertigo. I'm with you. And you know who to me was honestly ahead of the curve, and I'm not trying to bump his numbers up because we're big fans and he's been on the show. But Kyle Starks was a kind of ahead of the horror curve with comics, doing a funny one with Where Monsters Lie, which the sequel's coming out this month, I believe. And
Yep.
then what was the one with the two women who inherited the farm with the ghosts?
I hate this place.
I hate this place. Like, I don't know. I just feel like he had his finger on the pulse of it coming and did two. He might have had a third one because I can't remember all the stuff that he does, with it. Got two good horror books out there before, the glut of horror books started.
And I'll even say this. He had, like, and again, friend of the show, friend of ours, outside of this, right? We became friendly with him through the show and everything else like that, and just being fans of his work. But even with his previous stuff, going all the way back to Sex Castle and, Kill Them All and Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton and Rock Candy Mountain and stuff, he had a vibe and he had a market that he was doing the comic books that he wanted to make.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, when the rest of the industry kind of said, like, oh, this is a vibe and this is a feeling that is selling, he already had stuff on the shelves. Now,
yes.
Am I saying that Kyle is like some sort of a person who could predict trends ahead of time? No, but I'm saying that he's had a lot of luck with it, whether it be with the sort of action comedy stuff that he's done previously, into the horror comedy, more hard comedy, more hard comedy for some, more hard horror for others. And it's all varied. No 2 or 3 of his horror books are alike, and he's got a third one coming out in January now through Dark Horse. But it's more so, it's like, well, this is what I want to write now, and it just so happens that it fits in with the current sensibilities of the buying populace.
Right. He got lucky.
Yeah, and again, it's like he got lucky, not that his success came through luck by any stretch of the imagination. But
no, I'm just talking about the genres he did were soon to become hot. That's the luck. Like, because he's just picking what he wants to do. All right, I'm doing an 80s action movie. All right, I'm doing, a fun buddy, the Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton. Like, but then he's like, all right, he just happened to do 3 horror books, and then 4 months like at the tail end of those 3 books is like, what's hot in comics? Horror, everybody. And it's like, well, these are already on the rack, but quality also rises to the top too.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll say, listen, I'll say this. He's had a good track record. We talk about his books all the time. We're going to be talking about one a little bit later on and what we read from this past week. I don't know. Follow Kyle Stark stuff if you want to be ahead of the trends,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You want to say I was reading it before it was cool sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, we have one really good writer in what we read this week, Joe. Oh, wait, we might have 2 also.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So, like I said, that's the news this week. Not a lot going on. New York is coming up here shortly, so I think a lot of people are holding stuff close to their vests,
Mm-hmm.
We do have some conventions this weekend. Kind of smaller conventions that don't pop. But definitely when you look at the guest list, they absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a convention called the LA Comic Con in Los Angeles. And Scott Snyder's going to be there like the week that all the DC All-In stuff rolls out.
Yeah, the big special.
Right. Mark Silvestri, Ryan Otley, Joelle Jones, Mitch Gerads, Tom King. Then the Bedrock Comic Book Con in Houston, Texas. Okay, whatever, right? I've heard of Houston, Texas. Bedrock Comic Con isn't like one of like the top 10 comic book conventions if I was to make a list,
Right.
But they got Joe Jusko, they got Dennis Cowan, they got Jeff Smith, and they got Jim Lee.
Right.
I don't know. That's like a pretty big get for this comic book convention that, let's just say has a very similar template that I see a lot of comic book conventions use as the template for their website.
Did you see all the creators on that site, like when the pictures of them?
Yes.
I was going to say Lucas Lee Garza is there. And
Okay.
when I went to them, I was like, oh, they have Jim Lee, they have Jeff Smith, Dennis Cohen. They have the lead singer to Cure is going to be there.
Robert Smith, put some respect on their name.
Well, he does look like him, though. He does look a lot like Robert Smith. And he could have been Morpheus from Sandman, this creator, if they got him,
And I'll say it's pretty crazy to me. And again, it's Lucas Lee Garza is someone who I've never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
But they get second billing below Jim Lee, but above Jeff Smith.
Yeah, that is. Well, Jeff Smith hasn't done anything in a long time, so.
I don't know. Bone's pretty strong that he could ride on the credentials of Bone for the rest of his life.
But he'll never lease it out to another network or whatever. He's been burned too many times, Joe.
Yes, but to promote, Lucas Lee does a book called Wallow, Wallo, a dark fantasy manga adventure imbued with magic and horrors beyond imagination.
Right.
So, again, we don't want to just say, like, oh, this guy looks like Robert Smith of The Cure.
But they're not mutually exclusive.
No. Somebody would at least think that they were related.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to be in LA or Houston this weekend, we'll have the links to those conventions here in the show notes, of course, along with information about the soon-to-be-named network at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Anytime any of the shows in the soon-to-be-named network go live, of course you can find them at their own individual sites. Of course you can find them through the podcatcher of your choice. But the one-stop shop to get all the shows when they come out is soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com, and that includes, for the shows, this one that you're listening to right now, Longbox Heroes After Dark, Puzzle Warriors 3, Profane Arguments, At Odds with Wrestling, We Need Wrestling, Final Wrestling Place, Wings on Wing, Porch Talk. Ed's doing his own thing. Ed's a friend of the show, friend of the network. I don't know what Ed's up to. Car Seat Ed Rest on social media. Go follow Ed if you want to be infuriated. But some of our other friends that are doing stuff around the internet in a much less infuriating way than Ed is and will ever do. Go check out Mike Sterling's blog over at progressiveruin.com. Go check out our friend Kevin's blog over at helionsteam.com. He's been putting up a lot of YouTube content lately, so go check out those videos, whether it be stuff from RetroCon when he was there a couple weeks ago, to unboxing stuff, all sorts of things. Go check out our friend Rick Williams' website, the Chop Shop at freekaratechops.storeenvy.com. He's got resin, figurines, and pins and stickers, all inspired by like sci-fi, fantasy, horror, wrestling stuff. Jason Sandberg's Jupiter is available still through his Indiegogo page. Still waiting on the day, and again, if I missed the announcement of the second one, my apologies in advance, and as I look here, there is still only one campaign that he has. Go check out Chris Runt's Battle Monsters over at fortressofcomicnews.com. Our friend Davey of the band Cave People has his own self-published comics that he does over at cavedomaincomics.com. You can get those in print, or you can get them digitally. I know you, Todd, had said that he has something else cooking here in the near future. Is that correct?
I believe so.
I'm looking here now. I know he likes to keep his music stuff and his comic stuff separate, but there's nothing new there. But it looks like both Mending and Keeper are available digital and in print right now. I know Keeper was out of print for a while, but it looks like it's back in, so kudos there. And if you do not have a comic book store in your area, or you do not have a good comic book store in your area, let our store be your store, Comics on the Green. I have the Facebook page linked up. That's where Dave and the crew lets everyone know that the new books are here. Rings a bell, come on down, get the fresh, hot books right off the press. Let you know when a new Silver Age collection of key issues falls into his lap on any given weekend. And you could sign up for their mail order subscription service, get your books sent to you weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And if you do, there's a chance that you can get a sketch on the package from our good friend Becky, who we're going to turn things over to now for My Walk Down Lois Lane.
Welcome back to My Walk Down Lois Lane. Let's talk about the second story in issue 88 from 1968. Lois is having dinner at Lucy's house, and they're watching Lucy's favorite show called People Are Wacky. It's a dating show. Women have their information logged into a large supercomputer, who then finds them an eligible bachelor. The two see each other every night for a week to let romance blossom, and they get $1,000 spending money. The host tells everybody that 100 out of 105 people have married because of the show. Lois tells Lucy those girls are lucky. She could make 1 million dates with Superman, but he's not going to marry her. So Lucy has the grand idea of submitting Lois for the People Are Wacky, and maybe she can trade in Superman for someone who doesn't find her a burden. A month later, Lucy invites Lois to tag along with her to a taping of the show, when Lois is selected from the audience to go up on stage and meet a date. She only agrees so she can write a story about it for work. As she stands there, smugly thinking no man will ever be good enough, they introduce her to sportsman Robert Werner. He is a dead ringer for Clark Kent. The host goes to give Roger the $1,000 spending money, but he declines it. He tells everybody he makes enough money. Donate it to Lois's favorite charity. He takes her to an expensive nightclub for dinner and dancing, but Lois is kind of put off because he looks so much like Clark. As they leave the club, a thug appears and tries to rob them at gunpoint. As Roger holds up his hands, Lois thinks, oh great, he's a coward like Clark too, but that was a ruse. Roger uses jiu-jitsu to knock out the thug. As the cops arrive, they begin to swoon over Roger and tell Lois that he is a World War II bomber pilot captain who collected 12 medals for bravery over 100 missions. Lois is impressed that a guy looks like Clark but acts like Superman. He asks her to come to his private box at the racetrack, and Lois agrees if she can bring Clark along. When she's there, she sees that Roger is a jockey and a National Derby winner. Clark remarks it's odd that they look alike, but Roger tells Clark that scientists think at least 30 people look alike across the world. Roger invites Lois for another date, and Clark is jealous that Roger has time for her when he doesn't. Over the next few weeks, Lois goes to dinner with Roger, where he speaks perfect French, the beach where he's shirtless and he saves a woman from drowning, so she gets to see his 12-pack coming out of the ocean like a Bond girl, and he gifts her a large diamond ring and asks her to meet his parents. She agrees, and they travel to his yacht by seaplane. Unknown to them, the plane is broken, but Superman helps land it without letting Lois know that he was there. The parents love Lois, and Roger confirms the marriage on the deck of the yacht. Superman knows he's beat, so to hide himself he flies away at super speed, and the wind he creates knocks off Roger's toupee. Lois gasps that Roger is secretly bald, and he runs away in shame. Being bald is his one weakness. As Lois tries to find him, she sees a speedboat taking off, and a member of staff gives her a note that says the following. Dearest Lois, forgive me for deceiving you. I should have told you I was bold, but I was too vain and too dishonest, so forgive me. I'm not worthy of you. I'm leaving for a 3-year trip around the world. Goodbye forever. That's a little dramatic, and Lois states that his boldness wouldn't have mattered. The issue ends with the host of People Are Wacky asking her if she'd like another go at a supercomputer, but she declines. She said she will stick to her original choice because she knows his hair is real. He was rich. He had a 12-pack. He was brave, and he was handsome. My dude could have had it all. Lois has married Lex Luthor before, and he's as bold as a baby's behind. It would have worked out. They would have been fine. But oh well. Tune in next week for more.
Thank you very much, Becky. As always, it's a fascinating look into these romance/Lois Lane comics from back in the day. I think 2024, it's time. What are they? A revival of People Are Wacky, the dating show from the 60s.
Yes, I would watch People Are Wacky.
And I love the science fact in this, that at least 30 people across the entire world look the same.
That is fact.
So there's 29 other people out there across the entire world currently at this given moment that look like you or I.
Ugh, don't curse them, Joe.
See, that's what I'm saying. And
Boy, did you win
not to spoil our upcoming Patreon show, but I wonder if we could exist in the same room with them at the same time.
Did they win the genetic lottery, Joe? Ugh. But I'll say this, and I think it's time. I look back like at a different time when a man being bald was the worst thing that could happen to him. I'm like, oh my God, it was such a different time, and you can't judge. But and I just like that he wasn't truthful. It can't be all truthful like Lois Lane with her lipstick and her makeup and her shoulder pads and stuff like that. All honest, Joe. All 100% completely honest.
Are you insinuating that that's how Lois in the 60s looked?
I'm not insinuating anything. I'm just stating fact. But it was another great segment, and I look forward to one in the future because I got the Iggy that she asked you if she was allowed to say a certain word. So I'm looking forward to that one in the future for Halloween-ish.
She's allowed to say whatever she wants, and if there's one that's going to have some salty language, I will publicly disavow before we play the clip, you know?
I told her, say what you want. Joe will use all his technological know-how to beep it out, and I think that'll be funnier.
Okay.
But
so thanks as always, Becky, for your insight and the history lessons that we get from these things. Now, Todd, let's get into what we read from this past week. Where would you like to begin?
I would like to start with the book I was looking forward to most, which was the Lobo Cancellation Special, #1, by those Starks boys, or Kyle Starks and Kyle Hotz. Basically, this book starts out, and I like the fact that the editor has nailed down the exact spot where this book takes place. Somewhere between his first appearance, Omega Man 3, and Superman 15, his last appearance in 2024. Oh, right off the bat, I know we're getting good stuff, Joe.
So I need to interject there. I am very, and again, if you listening to this show or otherwise actually suffer from legitimate OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, my heart goes out to you because, you know, it's a very difficult thing to deal with, you know, from the cases that I've seen. And I don't want to say that I've joked as not a laughing matter, but I've said that I feel as though I have touches of that sort of thing, and, you know, hypervigilance and all these sort of things, right? That part of the book is how I realized that I don't have those sort of things.
Right.
Because as I was reading the book, I certainly was writing down clues that could pinpoint where this story might have happened. And if I had more time on my hands, I would really try to figure out where this happened.
I'll say that, well, you could get somebody's tires slashed if you figure it out. Okay. And I'll say this to what I said about our good buddy DJ. Sometimes you just have to let it go, Joe. So, but through, like, at some point, Lobo gets knocked off his bike while he was drunk and careens to this planet, and he's living there, and he ends up, like, wiping out, like, 90%, but he has to, you know, he lets some of them live, and he's helping these people. Lobo helping. Helping's not like a maybe not the right word. And he finds out, like, when things go wrong, we find out how mad Lobo can get. And I do love, like, that phrase that I can't say here. But, you know, he ends up getting found by these aliens, and they want him to go find the king's daughter of these aliens. But before he goes, he ends up wiping out the rest of the people on the planet. And they're asked why he didn't wipe them all out. And the story that they tell is very poignant for a Lobo story. Like, they do his origin, and I like that they even, like we say, where does this story take place? They talk about when he wiped out his people. Was he a kid? Was he a teenager at school? Because it's varied to degrees. But when he did, he had to be alone on the planet for years until he got off. And as this goes on throughout the book, maybe shows a softer, like a tinge of soft side to Lobo, even though, like, this book is just carnage. So these aliens say, like, we did math to find you. Lobo hates math. He's like, all right, we got to go. But first I got to find my bike. And hey, by the way, what are these things that are on your collars? And they end up saying, these are our puffballs, friendly companion toys. And then Lobo steals one of them, gives it a name, and the name he gives it never stops being funny through the whole issue. I'm not going to give it away, but I was like, every time it came up, Joe, I died laughing. I'm so, like, you know, I'm so childish. Absolutely loved it. He ends up getting a clue to where his bike is. He meets a guy he has to fight. I like the bit, and the guy's name is, and I love the names that Kyle Starks come up with. His name is Fever Steve, which is just a great dirt bag name, by the way. And they end up fighting, but Fever Steve has the edge, but how Lobo gets over on him is fantastic. And then they finally go to, if you thought Fever Steve was a great name, Murder Crotch Slaughterface is the guy who has the kid, and he goes to fight him to get the kid back. And maybe there's some more kids and how it plays out with the story in the beginning. It became touching for a hot minute while there was, murder all over the place. Kyle Hott's art is amazing. I like the farmers in the beginning. They have a very I'm trying to think what the insect Zorak on Space Ghost kind of a look. I thought they were fantastic. And them repeating everything that Lobo was saying was a great gag because he had been there so long. I had a lot of fun with this. The book looked beautiful. If you like Lobo and you like that dirtbag, like assassin kind of bit that he does, you have to get this book. Lobo was exactly what I wanted out of this.
There's a beautiful book. I love Kyle Hotz's art. One of my favorite unsung artists of the last 30 years. We talked before about Kyle Starks earlier here. I couldn't imagine a more perfect Lobo book written in 2024. Mm-hmm. But it also works because this is a Lobo book that could have come out in the 90s or the 2000s or the 2010s. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in this book that's like a pop culture reference or that could tie it to a specific point in time, which is part of the bit that you had mentioned at the beginning with the editor's note that it takes place between his first appearance and his most recent appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say I have not read a ton of Lobo, and I feel as though they've played, DC, that is, Pronouns Pal, have played fast and loose with Lobo's origins a bit.
Mm-hmm.
He went from the last Caesarian to having a whole planet of Lobos in the most recent Superman stuff.
It was more of a, Brainiac shrunk a city of Caesarians.
That's right. Yeah.
So it makes sense. But then spoiler alert, got wiped out again. So he's the last one again.
And the fact that he could regenerate himself from a drop of blood, and sometimes he's a goodie and sometimes he's a baddie. And then remember when there was and again, I don't even know what verbiage we could use for the different Lobo, I guess, that didn't look like current day Lobo that everyone's up in arms over. Do you remember?
Do you mean the New 52 run of Lobo?
There you go, New 52 Lobo.
When I met Simon Bisley, he hated, because I got a sketch in my sketchbook, and he was like, Lobo. I said, can you draw Lobo for me? And he goes, and I'm not going to curse, but if the best way to do it is if you ever saw the Young Ones. He reminded me a cool guy from the Young Ones. And he was just like, as long as you don't ask me to draw the beep Twilight Lobo that they're doing in the New 52 books. That's what I always called him after that. The good-looking, sparkly Twilight Lobo.
Right, Twilight Lobo.
With his lightsaber daggers, but go ahead.
So has it ever been a major plot point of Lobo's character motivations that he's lonely and he doesn't want to be lonely?
I don't think so, because he's had remorse. He's never had remorse for killing all his whole thing, but I think it was more he just didn't want to be like you said, alone anywhere. It works because he always went to where groups were and hung out in bars, but they never said it matter of factly, I would guess, if that makes any sense.
It does, because it's something that was not needed for Lobo, but it's something that works.
Sure.
And if they decided okay, we're going to take this little germ, this thing that we can go through 30 plus years of comic book stories and pull dozens, if not hundreds of examples to kind of support this thing that we're now putting into a comic and addressing for the first time in 2024 about Lobo's characterization. It's something that kind of makes him a little bit more three-dimensional than just, a remorseless goofing around killing machine.
Right, because when Keith made him, he wasn't that.
Right.
And in Omega Men, and then you get to the Justice League International stuff and what would come from that later. He became a parody of the Grim and Gritty books that were not so much in the Legion, but in his one-shots, 100% in the miniseries that he did. It was all satire. And like you said, this... I mean, they may have fleshed him out somewhere along the line a little bit like this, but I didn't read every Lobo book. But I get what you're saying. This does add a little bit to basically a one-dimensional character.
Yes. And did you mention, and again, we don't want to spoil too much about this book because it's definitely a lot of fun.
Right.
My favorite bit is Lobo proving that he's smarter than people give him credit for. By arguably doing the dumbest thing ever to not be mind controlled.
Yes. That's how he gets over on Fever Steve, Joe.
Oh, my God. No spoilers, but I'll just say Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't believe that worked for Lobo.
Okay. I'll have to ask about that after the show.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So anything else about Lobo you want to talk about? Enjoyed it very much.
I enjoyed it also.
Yes.
I can't think of anything else. So
let's talk about Saga number 69, written by Brian K. Vaughan with art by Fiona Staples. We're back after being away for however many months it was, but we are currently at the point in the storyline where all of our little different storylines that are happening in the book are getting pushed closer together to that boiling point where we're going to have at least one or all of them interact. But most importantly, the stuff that I want to talk about is like the A story, right? Whether it be the stuff with like the will and him hallucinating and who and what he sees. We get Countess Robot and then Velour having their meetup. Those are like your B and C stories. Those are like your back burner stories. The A story is all the stuff with Hazel and Alana, right? And that stuff, they're adding just little bits, just enough stuff in there to let you know, whether you're a new Saga reader or an old Saga reader, things are going to start going bad. Because that's what Saga's all about. It's making you have that sense of that false sense of security that like our heroes finally got it together. They're going to be safe. Nothing bad's going to happen to them. And then, we get the soft stuff with Hazel and the spider little girl, Amias. Again, I don't know how to pronounce it. With them and their band and Hazel learning, what part in the band she's going to play and where she excels and everything else like that. You get the stuff with Prince Robot and that really touching scene with Prince Robot and Alana. That was great. And it's like, oh, we're seeing this moment and this bonding moment between the mother and the adopted son and everything else like that. And then the chef at the circus thing, the train thing that they're at, the traveling whatever, brings up that Windy Tooth place again.
Right. Harmless place, probably.
And again, this is the second time in 2 issues that this has been brought up, and I don't like it. First time I didn't like it. Second time I really don't like it. But the thing that I dislike the most about this issue,
right,
is Feld, the bartender guy,
right,
and he was lying about the phone call.
Good thing Lion Cat wasn't there.
Oh my goodness! And it was one of those things where the way this story was constructed, Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples did not need to let us know at this point that he was lying. But the fact that they did means something's going on. And now, with the book being back, now we're 3 issues in, I feel sad. Bad things are going to happen to all my characters I like. I thought this was going to be it. I thought everything was just going to be smooth sailing Ashley Remington from here on out.
Okay, I got to write that down. But I'll say this. I believe that Brian K. Vaughan is going to swerve us hard on this, giving us a comic book gotcha. I do believe that the place that they want to send Prince Robert is a good place. I honestly believe they're filling us with dread for this. And I feel that Alana is going to end up with the bartender, that he was a bad guy, but he's going to have a change of heart and he's going to turn the other way. And I think, like, because this whole time we're feeling, dread about this guy, something's not right. But I do feel, I don't know, like that's where it's going to go. But the thing that affected me most, like, that I've missed in these books, for me at least, since it came back, is those gut punch moments. And I'll say this, when Will and Gwen are hallucinating, and it's all because Sophia, the girl they kind of raised as their daughter kind of a bit, has passed away, and the hallucinations make them see what they see, and the Will is trying to help his lover with the hallucinations to get him Sophia, and they reveal the hallucination, Joe. That I got goosebumps on that, because that's the stuff where you think you know where this book is going, and that can only lead to bad stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, I'm not saying I've been down on this book, because it's never been bad, but it didn't have the things that I loved about Saga again. And it came back and it had to catch its ground again and catch people up, like you said. But I feel like we're getting to the things that, like, rock me to my core again. And that's what I feel have been missing in the last 7 issues. There's been 1 or 2, but do you remember when we'd get 1 an issue guaranteed, and then some days 2 an issue? I feel like we're getting that every 5 issues now. That's the best way to explain it, because I'm not good at that. But yeah, that's where I feel this book is right now. It's starting to come back to amazing.
It's always been amazing, but now it's just one of those things where we're getting those moments again. What we haven't gotten a while since this return, that first page punch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll say this because it reminds me of Walking Dead when we were talking about it back in the day, that I'll just feel that the return that we came back is a lot of triples. How about that?
Okay.
A lot of triples, but
those add up.
A few home runs and a grand slam.
All right.
But it's just, I know you love when I say this. This is my personal opinion, Joe.
All right. Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion, especially when they're wrong. That's what we read from this past week. Let's get into what we're looking forward to coming out this week. If you head over to longboxheroes.com, every Tuesday around noon Eastern time, we put up the poll post, which is a link to all the books that are coming out this week, whether you get your books in print, whether you get them digitally, whether you get them sent to your home. Be forewarned, be forearmed, know what's coming out this week. Todd and I attempt to guess what the other is most looking forward to coming out this week. Todd is currently in the lead over me with 1 correct guess.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we got.
Looking over your list, is the book you're looking forward to most the DC All-In Special Numero Uno?
I will say yes.
Okay.
And I'll say that's the book you're most looking forward to coming out this week as well?
Right, because when it comes to All-In, that phrase, me and you are the biggest on the freight train. But go ahead.
Because, with Absolute Power and the All-In Special coming out on the same day, right?
Yes. It's
6 of one, half a dozen the other. I could read, my approach to it was, even if for some reason I wasn't reading Absolute Power, which I am reading Absolute Power,
mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to the DC All-In Special, because presumably you should be able to read that without having read Absolute Power 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm hoping so, but that's what
I'm hoping as well, right?
But I'm feeling like it might be Absolute Power issue 5.
Right, and that's the other thing, is I feel like it could be that as well.
Right, but hopefully it's written so good that you don't need it, but if you read it, then it is Absolute Power number 5, if that's making any sense, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to JSA being over.
Right.
So we can get the Jeff Lemire one coming out,
2 years. Over 2 years to get a 12-issue miniseries out, Todd.
DJ asked me at the shop today, hey, it's coming out tomorrow. Who won that bet? And I'm like, me and Joe don't bet no more. So I don't. Yeah. We'd have to go back to the archives, which I don't.
I will say I don't think either one of us won. Mm-hmm. Because I think just the general bet was, will it be out before the end of the year?
I thought there was a side bet with, would it be out before the new JSA?
Right. And then that's what had happened was, once the new JSA gets announced, we said, will it be out before the new JSA, is what the bet essentially changed to.
That we didn't bet, right.
That we didn't bet. But I think I will take the L on this one, and I would say that my thought process was that it was either going to come out the same day as or after.
Right.
And I think you had said that it was going to come out before.
I think I did say that, because I even might have said I think they're going to just scrap it and put 2 new artists on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is basically what they did, as far as I'm concerned. That 11 and 12 are coming out so close together.
Yeah.
That it was like, because they were 2 different artists, and it gets it out in time for the thing. But I do think DC would have dropped the new JSA without this one coming out.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad that it's done. I'm sad that it's done. I'm looking forward to the new take on JSA from Jeff Lemire.
Mm-hmm. I really it's not this week, we're talking about all this stuff, but he got to do a lot of his DC-esque world building with the Black Hammer stuff.
Right.
And I feel as though the practice that he got by doing that book and all the spin-off books and everything else like that is going to really help shape. I don't think he's just going to take what he did in Black Hammer and put it here, because he has a new Black Hammer book coming out at Dark Horse next month. But I definitely think Jeff Lemire is an underrated superhero comic book writer. He does a lot of other weird stuff, a lot of thought-provoking stuff, horror stuff, that sort of thing. But I think his superhero game is very much slept on.
I would agree. And I would also say, I didn't know. I thought he was actually done with his Black Hammer stuff. Or is this the one that's supposed to be done?
I don't know what. So I know there's a new one that he just started at Boom, and I can't think of the name of it right now off the top of my head. But I know there's a new Black Hammer miniseries that comes out in December.
Oh, okay. I thought he said he was wrapping that up with the last one, but
yeah, I guess
you
not.
know what? Okay.
I guess not. So while you're over at longboxheroes.com, of course, be sure to check out past episodes of this show, past episodes of Longbox Heroes After Dark, and of course, the current ongoing Todd and Joe Have Issues, as we are rereading all of Gail Simone's Secret Six. And I say Gail Simone, but at this point, I think we can say Gail Simone and Jim Calafiore's Secret Six, because I'm pretty sure Jim is the artist for the majority of, if not the rest of the book.
I'm 99.9% sure, yes.
Yeah. But this is the wrap-up to the little 4-issue arc that we had here, Cats in the Cradle, which is Catman going after his kidnapped son, the rest of the 6 going after him, and the main 6, Scandal, Deadshot, Ragdoll, and they bring Black Alice along. If I have a complaint about this issue, we didn't follow up what was going on with Bane and his crew.
Right. But that wasn't the crux. That was just I kind of feel that as even though it was in the middle of an issue, an epilogue, for
it was
the
more
next
of a throwaway gag than anything else.
Right. I think it was more of a setting up something for the next storyline, but I forget, to tell you the truth.
Right. But this issue and this little arc kind of wraps itself up, and it, ends up being a lot about parents and fathers and sons and your relationships with them. We get the B story stuff with Black Alice in regards to what happened with her trying to use her uncontrollable magic to help her ailing father. We get more of the flashbacks between Catman's parents and himself as a 9-year-old boy. And if you thought Catman's dad was a jerk the last time that we talked about him, boy howdy, he decides to take more water out of the jerk pool.
I think he took it all, to tell you the truth.
There, right. And then we get information, we get the revelation that McQuarrie, the guy who set them all up, even though we saw him attempt to take his own life, apparently he is still alive, so we could have that moment with Catman to tell him why Catman did the things that he did. and the decision that Catman has to make. Right. I love this story arc.
I told you this might be my favorite story arc of Secret Six. And the ending of it, and we'll get to it all, but the ending of it is so good. There are moments that I want to touch on with the whole relationship between Black Alice and Ragdoll is amazing. And when it goes down because she's trying to hurt Scandal because she thinks she's trying to take Ragdoll away, but he's not her boyfriend, Black Alice's, and they go at it, and Ragdoll stands up for her. Literally, I'll get there in a second, because like Deadshot says like some snide remark, and he's like, she's somebody that I talk to, and like we're good. She likes talking to me, and and if you have more to say about this, you better be faster on the draw than you think. And he's like, all right, easy, killer. And he's like, what are you staring at? And he's like, guess we never saw you stand up straight before, is all. And Joe, that bit is beautifully done by Calafiore, because when Ragdoll stands up, it's the first time you see him like that, like a human being in a weird way. And he stands up, and it all came flooding back when I hit that moment. And I was like, oh my God. And I literally got goosebumps then, and I have goosebumps now. I love Ragdoll so much. Then on top of that, you have the bit with McQuire, whatever his name is. I have to ask you, because do you mind if I get to the ending to say what I want to say?
No, listen, I laid out the broad strokes of the issue, and this is a 13-plus-year-old comic book story, so I feel free to talk spoilers on it, but I just kind of want to lay out what happens in this
I didn't know if there was something else you want to talk about before I take it home on that.
Talk about everything. Let's go.
But it's the bit where he ends up saying, like, this happened to my family. One of my kids was killed with brother blood, but my wife and my other kid were killed in this like little crap hole town, which her name is Jade, I believe, is the mother of the child with Catman. She blew up that town, killing millions of people, which I always like people gloss over, like how bad she is as a villain, because she murdered a whole bunch of people with a nuclear bomb. And he says, this happened, and my revenge was never about you. It was about her. And I was gonna take out the little brat. I was gonna unalive him, as Becky says, and
send him to Greenland.
Right. And he goes, but I sent that little kid to a family that will love him, and they couldn't have a kid, and that's all they wanted, and he's gonna be a better person for it. Do you think you can raise him better? Do you think that sociopath murder could raise him? He goes, he's better off, and you know it. And that ending crushed me so hard, because Catman basically goes, yeah, and then he calls Jade and says, kid's gone, and she loses her mind. And I'm saying Jade, and it's not Jade. It's Cheshire. Cheshire. I'm sorry. Cheshire goes off, and she's crying, and he ends up never asking about where the kid is, because if he knows, he'll go find him. And to this day, I don't think they've ever touched on that kid again, which I find fantastic. And in the end, is McQuire a hero in this? Because he saved that kid, even though he did all these dirtbag things. He's the hero of the story.
At least Todd, he certainly thinks he is.
Oh.
And I will say, up, and away.
Yep. Up, and he throws him out the window. But you get what I'm kind of saying. He's not the hero because of what he did. But he did the best thing out of all of them. I don't know. I just really like this whole issue and how it ends. And it might be one of the best endings to a story that I've ever read, because just how dark and light it is at the same time.
And obviously how things get collected. This will probably be in the second omnibus of Secret Six stuff when it comes out. This has been collected in like 6-issue trades and 10-issue trades and whatever it is. In a different time, in a different way that publishing worked, these 4 issues alone would be solicited as like a graphic novel or whatever it is. And you get such a complete, great story in this.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like, there had been people that I gave Secret Six to and said, read it, it's great. and just had them start at the beginning. But if I could give anyone 4 issues of of Secret Six to read that distills the essence of what this book is down to its purest form, it's this story arc. The Cats in the Cradle stuff, you don't get a lot of the other. You get enough of Scandal and Deadshot and Ragdoll, but you get so much Catman. And I say it every week that we talk about this, like the Bane redemption project, but the real redemption project of this whole book is Catman. Mm-hmm. And this is the most redeeming that Catman gets. And it's some of the most violent and graphic stuff that he does. It all in the service of saving his son.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, the reason I was confused is because Jade's her shoot name. But as it goes, I'm with you. And remember how I talked about, like, this is the storyline I gave to people and one grabbed them in? When they get to the end of this book, this 4-part miniseries and 4-part storyline, they're like, oh my God. And there wasn't one person that I gave this to that didn't go back and get all, like I said, all the Secret Six issues and ride it to the end and even into the New 52 run, man. So good. Just so good.
New story arc next week, issue 23, right?
Looking forward to it.
I've been looking forward to every issue that we've talked about since, everyone that we'll be talking about going forward, and fondly remember rereading them here for this project.
Right.
And next month, we'll announce it first on the Patreon, but we'll be letting you know what we'll be doing for 2025's Todd and Joe Have Issues. That's
right. We're closing in. I can't believe we're like 3 months left to this. I feel like we just started it.
I know. It definitely feels like we just did. Mm-hmm. So one more time, while you're over at longboxheroes.com, go check out the store, buy shirts and pins and stickers with our fancy logo on them. Shoot me a message. I'll make you a deal. Go make any and all of your eBay purchases through our eBay affiliate link. This page contains affiliate links for eBay. We may receive a small commission on purchases that you make. You could use this affiliate link anytime you want to buy anything on eBay and support the show at the same time.
Yeah.
Before I get into the Patreon push, I would be remiss not to mention, to remind you, Todd puts out the tweets later in the week. I'm reminding you now, the games start on Thursday. Don't forget to put your picks in for the ESPN Pigskin Pick'ems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm settling into a nice bottom of the heap, which is right where I should be.
Right.
Todd is currently in an 8-way tie for 9th place, however that works.
Mm-hmm. But because I had 10 correct guesses this week, and Vansky only had 8 correct guesses. Even though we're tied, I'm above him, so that's all that matters.
That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the real most important thing is our Patreon at patreon.com/longboxheroes. As little as $1 a month, you are going to get 2 bonus shows a month from Todd and myself. One is Previewing the Past, where we look at 30 years ago, this month's previews catalog. We're getting ready to record October 1994 this weekend. We also do Comic Book Oddities, where we look at some of the lesser known, much maligned, much forgotten, many pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. All the attempts that were made to bring comics to the small and silver screen with varying levels of success, usually poor to bad. What did we? Oh, we had R.I.P.D. for September.
How could you forget, man? R.I.P.D. But go ahead.
And if you are an At Odds with Wrestling Patreon, maybe you already got this month's Patreon. We did a crossover with Adam because we both ended up landing on the Jean-Claude Van Damme 1994 epic Time Cop, and it fit in with both our comic book sensibilities and wrestling sensibilities, so we reviewed it on both shows and just the way that those things get scheduled. If you remember the At Odds with Wrestling Patreon, you've already gotten it. If you're on our Patreon, which you should be, you'll be getting it a little bit later on this month.
Yes.
Also, with your levels of patronage, no matter what they are, you're going to get the full scans of those preview catalogs that we talk about on Previewing the Past. High quality, expertly done scans going all the way back to 1990. You're also going to get access to the soon-to-be-named network Discord, come chat with the other hosts of the other shows and fellow listeners of the other shows as well. At the $5 level, you're going to get those 2 bonus shows 2 weeks before everyone else. And you're going to get Longbox Heroes After Dark 2 days before everyone else, so that you can listen to the shows in the correct listening order.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into some TV talk and maybe brief movie discussion after we're done. And it's going to be brief. Brief.
Right.
Go ahead.
Where do you want to start?
Agatha.
Okay. Basically, as we left them last week, they're on the road, which is where, it's a deadly journey, but witches can get their biggest desire. So we end up finding the one rule is don't wander off the road, as we see Kitty from that 70s show almost get sucked into like an oil pit. I don't know. So along the way, they find a house and they go in the house and they end up, having a drink of wine, and they find out that it's the first test, if you will. And basically it is, they have to make a potion. They have a potion gal, which is the person who was her powers were blocked or something like that. So she has to work harder to do it, and she's got to figure out a potion to do it. But the whole time they're hallucinating from the poison, and they're seeing various visions, and they end up seeing that teen. They realize that somebody has blocked teen, put a ward on him, so we can't figure out who he is. And the woman this is like the part that got me, the woman who is who does the potions, the bald woman who has hair in this moment, Joe. Do you want to touch on that at all, or?
A+ wig.
Okay, good. I was worried. You're not joking, being sarcastic?
Nope, really good wig work.
Okay. So she goes off there finding the potion ingredients, and she takes Teen, and she's like, watch out for Agatha, because Agatha had a kid, and she ended up trading him for the Darkhold. And we don't know where he is. He could be not alive. He could be, being a demon now. He could be working for Mephisto. ... Joe, finally, after all the speculation by speculators, Mephisto is mentioned in a Marvel Cinematic Universe property. So I thought that was really cool. Then in the end, like, they all see their horrors, they see like their nightmares, and we get glimpses into all the characters. And I thought it was really cool with Agatha seeing the Darkhold in the crib, so we know it's kind of true, maybe, that she gave up her kid. I'm trying to think if there was anything else there. And then they end up doing the potion and figuring it out and getting out. But in the bit of it, we lost Kitty from that 70s show, but I don't know. Maybe she's still alive. Maybe she's not. But they're saying she's dead as it ends. But it was a pretty easy episode to just give you the nuts and bolts of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel we're going to get the template where they're on the road. They come upon a thing. That's one of the trials. Mm-hmm. They have to work together. We find out information about the characters. And, obviously the whole thing is, I would say the two big things with the main characters in all of this is when is Agatha going to double cross everyone to get her powers back?
Right.
And who is the teen?
Obviously could be from this episode. Do you think it's Agatha's kid?
No.
That's what I think too.
I think because they said it, it can't be. If that makes any sense.
No, I'm with you. It feels like they mention it, and then the witches go, oh, we can't know your background because of the ward. Oh, and also Agatha had a kid. It just seems like all that information in one episode.
Right.
Is just too much. Like, it's too obvious for the kid to be her son.
And then even further still, before this episode, we had the first two episodes, there was online speculation that, okay, the teen isn't Agatha's kid. Mm-hmm. The teen is Mephisto.
Right.
Or the teen is working for Mephisto. We had that scene in the second episode where the teen and Agatha are driving the car together, and the teen gets the phone call from their boyfriend and then starts talking about their life, and it kind of fades out because of the ward or whatever it is that's on the kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then people were speculating that the teen isn't Agatha's kid, but the boyfriend that was on the phone, that's Agatha's kid.
Oh, that's a good speculation.
Okay. I think that's close, but I don't care who's on the phone. I care who the teen is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say last week who I think the teen is.
Oh, I meant to ask you. I don't know if you told me, but anyway.
Okay. I think the teen is from some other whatever, one of the kids that Wanda created for herself in WandaVision.
You think it's one of the basically little Quicksilver or Hulkling?
No. So, okay. So Hulkling's not one of the kids. Her kids were little Quicksilver and a little witch boy. Wiccan.
Wiccan and something else, yes.
I think the teen is Wiccan.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't think this is the last time that Mephisto's name will be mentioned in the show.
No, I don't. Do you think Kitty from that 70s show is really dead?
No.
There was a part of me that makes me think she's Mephisto.
Or she's another agent of Mephisto. Or she's one of the Secret Seven or whatever it is, right?
The Salem 7, I believe.
The Salem 7. There's more to her than meets the eye.
Right. She's a Transformer. Got it.
Right. She's an Autobot and a Decepticon at the same time. She's one of those ones where it was the heat sensitive thing on them where you had to put your thumb on them to press
their chest or whatever. And,
yes.
I'll say this. I have one other thing to say. And I call her the Tourette's witch who just spouts stuff.
Yes.
I have a feeling when we watch all these episodes together, she's saying stuff randomly, because this episode she says we have to save Agatha. And Agatha's like, I'm down with that plan. I think we're going to get a flashback scene or something. And all the things that she's spouting are going to make sense when we get to the end. Do you know what I mean? Because she's the fortune teller. So she's seeing the future, but she just doesn't know it. And I think, like I said, it'll all make sense at some point. And I do like the other thing is that when they're putting the potion together, that Eye of Newt, and they're like the guts of of an insect and stuff, and it's all it's wax or it's honey, and Eye of Newt is actually a spice, which I forgot to look up. And then the other thing was they needed petroleum products, and it was the makeup ladies, all her stuff, which was all natural. I was like, all right, there's a lot of good bits in this episode that I really like. So
I'm really enjoying the show.
Yeah.
So, hey, how about that penguin, huh?
Yeah, somebody said, hey, penguin, this episode.
I have it in my notes. Oh, and just real quick, Eye of Newt is mustard seed.
Right, okay.
Yes.
That's fantastic, by the way. You'll learn something every day, Joe.
That's right. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Penguin, this episode, of course, after the first episode where things get staged to cover up the Penguin killing Alberto Falcone, now the Falcone family is now, or it's all gets set up that it was the Marconi or the Maroni family that are going to be forced to take credit for it because the Penguin, who is sly like a fox. That's the thing that I love so much about the portrayal of the Penguin in this show. And it's not the Penguin, it's Colin Farrell, but it is the Penguin. Mm-hmm. Colin Farrell is doing such a good job of it, and I'm going to be all over the place for this.
No, I'm with you. This is a tough one.
And I'm sad that this person is such a mess, especially in this episode. And I do have one nitpick about the episode. It's one of an only Joe nitpicks, right?
I was going to say, after giving a wig an A+, I'll allow you a nitpick.
Okay, thank you. In a different world, in a different time frame, in a different whatever, Penguin in this TV show would be played by Artie Lang.
Artie Lang came up this week about Badmouth. Oh, I was with DJ and Brett, and they were talking about something of going to see Bob Uecker. But anyway.
Oh, I was going to say typical Jersey guy to bring up Artie Lang. I get you.
Right.
So it's one of those things where the Penguin is on his own. It's just him and Vic, right?
Right.
And he is working to play these two crime families against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And he's only one man. And he certainly is giving the vibe to them. The Falcone people and the Maroni people, that he's a bumbling goofball.
Mm-hmm.
But we know behind the scenes that he's got the makings of a criminal mastermind. He ain't there yet, because there are a lot of flaws in his plan, but it's the quick goat thinking that he has, that he's able to shift and pivot as the plan starts to fall apart. Oh, Vic wasn't able to plant the jewels here. Well, I could do this.
I could use those jewels later.
Yeah. I still have the knife on me. How can I get this knife off of me? Right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of, and again, I'm doing the broad strokes on all of this here.
No, I'm with you, because that's my favorite thing. Sorry to interrupt. It's the bit where it shows how smart he is, because in any other show, the plan would have worked. Do you know what I mean? Because he thought it out, and I got this going down, and I got to put the finger on somebody else.
And we would have seen those moments where, like, the plan is unraveling, and we get the push in on Penguin, and we see him in flashbacks setting up all those other contingencies.
Right. Where this is, it goes wrong. What can I do in the moment?
Yeah.
And it is, and I mean, it's as brilliant as you can be. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to say he's like Reed Richards' genius, but the writing and the acting, it's a believable plan on the fly, if that makes any sense. It's like, okay, this screwed up. This went foobar. What can I do? And he does it. And then even then, because he wants to put the finger on the consigliere, but he can't. So he puts it on the guy who ticked him off, like in the first 2 episodes, who came after him and beat him up. So it's like, okay. And I was like, that was a little twist, because he doesn't put it on the main guy that he wanted to.
And I'll go you one more. So the guy's name is Castillo. And this goes so deep in, Penguin and Castillo have the bit in the first episode.
Right.
Earlier in this episode, where the drug bust goes sideways, Penguin ends up saving Castillo.
Right.
To kind of absolve himself from later in the episode when he gets the chance. Now, granted, obviously Penguin wasn't thinking, okay, today I'm going to save Castillo's life because tomorrow I'm going to plant a knife on him. It was, I'm going to save his life so that tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, I have that moment that I could go, that alibi right there that I could point to, that like, oh, I saved his life here. Why would I go and do this to him here? Right?
Right.
And it was one of those things where it was Johnny Vitti is the one he's the one who's trying to cut Sophia out. He's the one that tells Sophia, like, okay, this is too much pressure for you. You need to just go to Italy and relax. Because, Todd, I don't know if you noticed, the pressure's starting to get to Sophia Falcone.
Oh, I'll get to my favorite scene with Sophia at the funeral, but go ahead.
So, when she's ripping heaters.
Oh.
So, there's that whole bit where Penguin's like, okay, Johnny's the biggest loudmouth. He's the one causing the biggest stink. And I'm like, oh, Penguin's going to plant the thing on him. But no, Penguin starts the scuffle with him so that when they could break it up, that he could slip the knife not on Johnny, but on Castillo. And I'm like, oh, it's brilliant, right?
It is. And his original plan to take down, you said it was Johnny, right?
Yeah.
Was because, remember, he also calls him the Penguin in the episode.
Yep, he's the guy who comes in. Yeah.
And that makes Penguin hate him. You know what I mean? So fantastic. But, yeah, and then the Falcone ends up killing him instead of Sophia, and Sophia's not too happy about it. So
because she wanted that closure, like, okay, you're like, somebody killed my brother. It looks like it's the Maroney family, but I'm not too sure. I'm going to go get the drophead detective on my payroll, right?
Who I thought was Bullock for a second.
No, it wasn't Bullock. I just have in my note as drophead detective, right?
No, it's fine. They didn't give him a name, I don't think. But I was like, please don't be Bullock.
Yeah. So gets him to go find out who the rat is, because the drop deal goes sideways. Because from the previous episode, they're supposed to be closing everything down. Penguin makes the deal with the Maroney family and says, listen, the Falcones don't want nothing to do with drops. How about I just say I'm getting rid of everything and I just bring the drops to you?
Mm-hmm.
And the plan is supposed to be that Penguin's supposed to be in the back truck. Johnny shows up and says, you're in the front truck. He pivots everything. It all ends up kind of not going completely sideways, but a little sideways. But it's because it's like, okay, this drug deal, this drug transport went sideways. We have a mole. Sophia gets the drophead detective to find out who it is. He ends up getting the guy who was driving the truck that the Penguin was in. That guy driving the truck figures it out. Alberto, maybe? No, not Alberto. He had a weird name.
Right, but he was the guy telling jokes while driving.
Airvad.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who's like, oh, wait a minute, the Penguin's in on it. He gets shot. He's in the hospital. Drophead detective goes and pulls him out of the hospital, still doped up on morphine. And it's like, oh, here's the guy. He'll come to here shortly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can question him or whatever it is. So they don't get a chance to question him. Johnny's the one who ends up shooting him. And Sophia goes further down her spiral because in her mind, getting the answer from Airvad of who the rat is, who the mole in the Falcone family is going to bring her to that closure that she needs, that she wants. And now she will never get of who killed Alberto because the episode ends, at least on the surface, with her and Penguin working together.
Right. Now, I'll say this.
We could talk about the show forever, but go ahead.
No, I'm still going. We're not watching the clock here. The bit where Penguin's walking around the house and he goes to see him and he just he's like, I'll get you out here as long as you say this name. And he's like, well, this isn't like when he figures out it's going to work and he just stabs him. I'm like, okay, maybe the Penguin's quick to betray people. I'm glomming on to that now. But as he's walking around the house, sneaking around with that Penguin walk, anxiety, Joe, in my chest. I'm like, don't get caught, don't get caught, don't get caught, right? So while all that's going on, the whole storyline with Sophia being the hangman and being out and everybody in Gotham hates that she's out because she's a murderer and she's killed apparently a bunch of these women. And she's at the funeral walking around. Everybody's whispering and she's just eating handfuls of food like the way I would at a party. And I'm just like, this is fantastic because she's starting to lose it. And then she goes out and she sees her cousin. My favorite scene in the whole episode. Maybe second, but we'll get there. And she goes like, hey, how you doing, cousin? Remember when we went to Italy? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you should go to Italy.
All those times at the lake and the trouble we got into with the boys.
And then the cousin's daughter shows up, the niece, and Sophia's talking to him. And Sophia feels a bit at ease. Finally, somebody's talking to her and being normal. But when the kid comes up and the mother doesn't freak, but is terrified for the kid because of Sophia's a crazy murderer, that bit is great. And then when Sophia turns into the skid because she sees it and basically soft threatens her cousin with, you better watch your kid because terrible things can happen. I'm like, oh boy, Sophia's nuts. Sophia is getting nuttier every episode, Joe. Fantastic. But go ahead. Sorry.
My favorite scene has to get set up a little bit because we have the bit where Penguin gets a phone call. He has to go back to see his mom.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out that mom was walking the streets thinking it's Sunday, not knowing what day it is. And they specifically mention that she has dementia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, Penguin is doing all this stuff. And the mom mentions, why do I got to live in this house? Why can't I go somewhere else? And we learn why. In just a casual, offhanded thing, Penguin, because he had to go take care of his mom, he's late to Alberto's funeral, shows up, there's protesters there for Sophia. Sophia's away from everyone else. She's ripping heaters in a hallway at the church or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Penguin lies and says that he was there. He was just in the back. And then he tells a story about what his mom went through when his brothers died and how she wasn't herself for a long time and how death of a loved one can have this toll on you. And then just one day out of nowhere, she said, let's go out. And they go out and he tells this whole story. And Sophia's like, yeah, that's a beautiful story, you know. And yeah, Penguin's like, yeah, too bad my mom's dead.
Yep.
And I'm just like, oh boy.
There's got to be a reason.
There's very clearly a reason that if you are in this sort of crime stuff, no weaknesses.
Can't have a mother with dementia running her mouth.
Because no weakness. Oh, okay, mom with dementia running her mouth, but two, if you're doing something and they can't get to you, they can get to your family.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, if your family's all dead, there's nothing they can hold over you. So Penguin's mom's alive, but he's letting everyone think she's dead. I'm afraid that may come back to haunt him.
What? Something comes back to bite somebody in any of these things that people are choosing? I don't know. That's a great bit. And when he tells the story about, like, let's go dance, and then how that relates to the end when Sophia finally trusts him. Yep. Maybe, kind of.
Maybe.
Sort of. And he's like, let's dance. And she kind of comes around because he's like, maybe I'm the only one you can trust here. But my favorite bit of the episode, Joe, besides all of my other favorite bits, is, okay, so we go on and we see the courtesan that Penguin was using for an alibi. And he has the party. And he ends up, like, talking with Vic. And they have a moment, and it's like, oh, like, he's talking about how he became the driver. And then Vic says, well, I'm the driver. Penguin and Vic are bonding. Maybe, I've seen a little Penguin do a lot of bad things, but maybe Penguin ain't as bad because he's taking this young whippersnapper under his wing. Then Vic messes up the plan.
Yep.
And they go bury the bodies. And the person that you thought was maybe coming around puts them in. Now he goes, Vic, lay down. Vic's like, you don't have, he's like, lay down. He's like, don't close your eyes. See how close you are? Those guys screwed up. You screwed up. You got to be a fast goat thinker, like you said, because if not, this is where you're going to be. And that's not helping. That's the vicious, like, sadist that the Penguin is. And it's such a thing. And throughout it, I'm like, who's going to betray the Penguin this season? Is it going to be Vic? Is it going to be his dementia mom somehow because of what she does? Is it going to be the hooker who gave him the alibi? Is it going to be Sophia? I'm putting all my money on all of them are going to betray Penguin this season. It's so crazy because I don't know where it's going, if it makes any sense, because that's how well written it is. It's like anybody could slightly bring his downfall, any of these characters.
I think Sophia is going to intentionally betray him. I think the mom and Vic are going to unintentionally betray him.
Right. And I think the hooker's going to try, and she's going to get penguined. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, he's going to be one step ahead of her. And, like, because she ends up saying to him, like, I know you were the one who killed Falcone. And that's why you needed my alibi, and we're in too deep. And she's like, I'm better than that. I'm good. I can outthink them all. And she's like, okay, well, that's her money in her back pocket. And he's going to realize that she's going to use it, and she's going to get wherever she gets. And the Penguins already have double-crossed her. And it's fantastic. That and his bedroom being the safety deposit box from the jewelry store is the way I'm going to design my new bedroom when I build a house. It's fantastic. I love everything about the Penguin show.
Yeah, the show's really good. I'm glad it's a TV show, and that's one of those things about, like, a DC show. That's different than a Marvel show. Marvel shows are good, right?
Right.
But because there's been so many of them, just by the law of averages, there's more good than there's just as many bad ones as there are as good ones. I don't want to say bad ones. There's just as many not great ones as there are good ones for the Marvel shows, right? With the DC shows, because they don't put them out so often, when they come out, they're all really good.
Yep.
Like, what have we had? We've had Peacemaker and this?
Yeah, like, literally, kind of, sort of, because Peacemaker came before the Jimmy Pistol regime went into full tilt, but that's him, so you have it, and then it goes into Penguin. Yeah, like, the two shows that they've done since Jimmy's come over, they're pretty good. So I have, like, hopes for, like, the DC, cinematic universe somehow, which I didn't think I would ever say in my lifetime. So
right.
You know, onward, up and away, Joe. You know?
Yes. Because, and I think this is our, we don't really, the only real thing that I guess that we would have coming up DC-wise is, as Penguin runs its course, we have the Creature Commandos coming out at the beginning of December.
Right.
And that's the first official Jimmy Pistol thing, right?
Right.
That he was involved with from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to the other stuff that he came in during the middle of production, kind of inherited, what have you. Looking forward to that.
And Peacemaker has been revamped to fit into the new universe with season 2. So
right. That was more so of spinning out of the Suicide Squad that Jimmy Pistol did, which those two projects together is what got Jimmy Pistol the job that he has now.
Right.
So those become bigger deals just because he's now a bigger deal.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend, Joker 2 comes out.
I saw the first Joker, and they kind of want to see Joker 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Okay.
1, because he's a character I relate to. 2, it's got Harley in it, and Joker and Harley. I don't date much, but relationship goals with Joker and Harley. I mean, that's what everybody has.
Lady Gaga, sure.
Yeah, I just want to say, I kind of do want to see it because me and a couple people went to see the Joker when it came out, and we were kind of like, eh? And then, it made $1 billion, and I equated it to a lot of people, it wasn't the first, that it was, what was the Jerry Lewis movie and De Niro, where it was the Kings of Comedy?
King of Comedy.
It was King of Comedy meets Falling Down, is all it was, and it kind of turned him into a hero, and I didn't like it, except for some scenes. Now I kind of want to hate watch 2, if that makes any sense. So I might see it. I don't know.
I was told that if you didn't see 1, then you're not going to understand a lot of the stuff that happens in 2 because they lean very heavily on 1.
Mm-hmm.
I have a person who gets to see sneak previews of stuff,
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Are they in this state?
No.
I was going to say, because we should do a meetup and watch these movies with them.
They have their own special group chat, if you will.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But they said it was okay, whatever. I didn't see the first Joker for the reasons that you mentioned. That I'm like, I've seen Falling Down, I've seen King of Comedy. I don't know how you could improve on them by making a Joker movie out of it. Mm-hmm. But if you go see Joker 2, you come back and you report to me next week.
Right. It could happen. It might not. We'll see.
There you go.
So
I might be going to see, and then the other thing is, I don't think I'm going to get a chance to see Venom, just to kind of lay everything out here.
Well, I'm not watching Venom because
I haven't seen the first 2 Venoms, and I feel if I go see the third one, I won't know what's going on.
I think it's worse. I might go see Venom 3 and understand what's going on.
I am going to go see Craven, though.
Somehow, I want to almost put Craven on the wheel. Do a Madam Web, kind of a deal. So,
and just say that's our December movie.
Yeah, me and you go see it. Together, separate, whatever. You get what I'm saying.
It would fit in where we would have to watch something for December,
right? It's not. We've never skewed the wheel other than Madam Web before, so right. I think never. 2 in 1 year is okay.
Right, and it's for things that are coming out in theater that could be on the wheel anyway.
Oh, and I have
no doubt. 4 years from now, when we can get to it while the iron is hot.
Right, I could take money out of my pocket and do it. So that's what I want to do.
Right,
unless they do another Madam Web streaming all day until it gets taken down. I don't remember what that was, but
yeah, somebody put it up on their Twitch channel.
Fantastic.
Like the weekend after the movie came out.
Right. After it made all the money it was going to make.
Yeah. Oh, boy. All right. So that's it, everyone. I think that's a show.
That is a show. It was a short one.
It was not a short one. So this was episode 730 of Longbox Heroes. For Todd, this is Joe saying thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you all here next week.
Remember, be a faucet, not a drain.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.
The Rob is a Longbox hero. The Rob is a Longbox hero. He gives us five stars.